Super Rugby Friday games, folks. We have two games on this Friday. The Saturday teams aren't out yet as I sit here on Thursday morning. So we'll look at the Saturday games separately. But two games on this Friday. Both games with teams featuring negative records, so losing records. So everybody needs a win, but at most only two teams can get them. We'll go through some predictions, some stats, and lineups and whatnot, and you guys can let me know your thoughts on how these games may be going to go. The first one from down in Dunedin, the winless Highlanders take on Moana Pasifika. This is surely the Highlanders' best chance to win a game. I mean, they came bloody close away to the Crusaders. So home to a team, the new team, which has just got that one win, it's surely a chance for them to finally get a win on the board. If they don't win this one, then something is drastically wrong. But that being said, just look to the Hurricanes experience to see what you'll get if you, if you play Moana Pasifika. You can get beaten. So yeah, they've not been on the greatest run, Moana Pasifika, with those two losses to the Blues following up that win, but I'm sure that's one more win than anybody thought they were going to have at this point of the season, especially after that first game. Highlanders have kept their lineup relatively stable. Selby-Rickit gets a start. Ainsley's in the front row alongside Makalio and Groot. Aaron Smith still starting, and he's captain alongside Mitch Hunt. They've basically, brought all their All Blacks to the fore. I mean, they got Shannon Frizell starting, they got Aaron Smith starting. Sam Gilbert's been in cracking form. He's on the wing. Garden-Bachop still on the bench. Groot, like I mentioned, starting. So yeah, it's a pretty strong look on the Highlanders side. And as I said, they really should be going into this one looking to I don't want to say easily, but wait till we get to the predictions, that they should be getting a win. For Moana Pasifika, they've got some bad news, and the Henry Stowers is out, and he's, for mine, been far and away their best player of the season thus far. So they've had to make a few changes. Remember, these guys have played a couple of games in the space of a week, so they'll have some tired bodies, no doubt. Lindenmuth is still starting with Kepu as the props. Dawai gets a start at hooker. Slade's back in at lock. Finau has come in at number 8 to replace Stowers. Motunga's also getting a start at number 7. Leali'ifano and Inari is still the same kind of 10-9 combo that we saw last week. Toala and HIGvMOA are back in the side in the backs, which is good. Likewise, Fainga'anuku. So yeah, it's good. They've brought back some guys, but as I mentioned, Stowers I think is the biggest loss of them all. Stats-wise, interestingly, the Highlanders have got kind of like the most blunt attack of all the New Zealand teams, and they're kind of the second worst overall, just in terms of their ability to get over the advantage line. They're averaging 3.5 meters a carry, which is only ahead of the Rebels. Moana Pasifika in comparison is 3.9, and the average across the competition is 4. So if you're thinking 3.5, the average is 4. That's not that bad, right? It's only half a meter, but that's per carry. And teams you can make 100 carries in a game. So on average, take it with whatever grain of salt or weight you want to. That's not a good number for the Highlanders. For Moana Pasifika, they're the one that's concerning the most for them is basically that they've kind of had to live off scraps in terms of just not having much ball. They're averaging 43% possession, and we see loads of teams win games with less possession. That's not it's not a strange thing, but 43 is by far the lowest of all the teams in Super Rugby. The Highlanders average 54%, so it wouldn't surprise me if you see the Moana Pasifika guys having to kind of stand on their heads in defence to hold the Landers out for a while, but we will kind of see how things play out. Predictions-wise, the Highlanders are 20-point favourites with the bookies and 20-point favourites with the Rugby Forecast algorithm. So they're not given much of a chance, Moana Pasifika, but as I mentioned, they weren't supposed to have one win at this point. So I'm not going to be writing them off. I look forward to a good game. But also, if the Highlanders do get a win, I think that maybe is the kickstart they need, because they need to get moving, man. We're already quite a chunk of the way through the season. You can't be going none from 6, man. The second game, the Force and the Rebels. I always feel like there's a little bit of bad blood between the Force and the Rebels just because of the way, the Force got cut from Super Rugby all those years ago, and a lot of the players and coaching staff went from the Force to the Rebels. So, I feel like the Force guys have always got a bit of a bone to pick with the Rebels, and they certainly picked it early in the year, man. When they played down in Melbourne, the Force absolutely did a job over the Rebels. So this time they're at home. They'll certainly be looking for a big win over the Rebels in this one, and their record of 2-4 will certainly look better if it's 3-4 rather than another loss, because they need to start picking up some wins basically now. They need to make Perth a fortress basically, because they do have that slightly added advantage of teams having to travel. I know it's the opposite is true when the Force travel, but you know what I mean. For the Rebels though, I do think they have been tracking a lot better in the last few rounds in the start of the competition. The start of the competition, they honestly just looked hopeless and directionless, but they seem to be coming right. So we'll see if that plays out this weekend and we get a bit of a closer game. Remember, both these teams have been on the bye as well last week, so they should be really well fresh. But with the Wallabies guys having a few days, I think, with Dave Reddy, the Force have actually decided to keep the likes of Mikaele-Tu'u and Rodder on the bench because they haven't had a full week with the Force. Ferguson Warner's moving to the second row. I'm still gutted that he's leaving Aussie Rugby without getting some gold, because I do think, I love my stats. He's got just the biggest engine of almost any of the players you'll find in Australia, and he's, guy who can play second row, loose forward. The only argument I can see against him is that maybe they think he's not dynamic enough as a loose forward and not big enough as a lock, but I really like him. I think he's a great player, and I think he's a big loss when he leaves at the end of the season. But for now, he's in the second row. Ainsley's in the back row alongside Koteka and Stander. Andrew Reedy gets a start, like I mentioned, because Kaitu'u's on the bench. Godwin is captain. He's in the midfield. Kunzel is there as well at 12. Pasifika gets a start at 10 this week alongside Paea. Otherwise, the team is pretty much stable. I see Santiago Medrano is leaving as well at the end of the season as well. So, it's a pretty stable lineup for the Force for the most part. For the Rebels, very stable. Josh Canham, I think, is the only change to the lineup. He comes in the second row. I think he had a couple of weeks off. Was it concussion for him? Either way, he's back. You've got the likes of Rhys Hodge and Andrew Callaway in the backs, but it was Vaihu who kind of lit things up in the last time we saw them play from memory. Tuttle and Tamua is the 9-10 combo. Michael Wells is captain in the back row. Cobus Eloff is probably the most exciting player in the Rebels lineup right now, to be fair, at tight head. That guy's, he's got to be a bit of a cult hero in that neck of the woods, surely. He just loves a carry. I'm still waiting for the time when we can see Fa'amusili back. Stats-wise, the Force are the best goal-kicking team in Super Rugby thus far, almost at 90% with their goal-kicking percentage, and they're up against the Rebels, who have the worst goal-kicking percentage of all the teams, 59. So if it comes down to kicks, your money should be on the Force for this one. And the Rebels, interestingly, they need to get their defence better. I should have looked at recent week stats compared to overall season stats. But overall season stats, the Rebels have got the worst tackling percentage. They concede the most clean breaks. So, kind of obviously, you're not going to win many games if you're putting up those kind of numbers. So if there's one area the Rebels need to be better, it's defensively. Traditionally, I would have said if there's an area the Force need to improve, it's just with their, the sharpness of their attack. But I do think that has been coming along. Part of that is due to Mataele, because he, on his own, just seems to be able to generate great attacking opportunities. But yeah, they certainly are looking better at this point in the competition than they were in the first couple of weeks when they were looking more like last year's team, the Force. Anyway, I'll stop rambling. It's the Force by 7 with the bookies and the Force by 1 with the algorithm. So we will see how things go. You guys let me know your thoughts on the games this Friday. Remember, we've got 3 more games on the Saturday. Once all the lineups are out, we'll check those ones out too. But otherwise, I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.